Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, joined by my fantastic co-hosts Paul Quinney and Dayton Reimer. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Jacob.
Good.
Well, a little tired, but we'll get there.
Yep, tis the season, long days, not enough sunlight, that's for sure. Um, so there's
No,
a lot of stuff that happened. What was that, Paul?
a shout out to my grandson who was here this week from Calgary, and we're doing the best that other members of the family are doing the best they can to counteract any influence on him of the Calgary Flames and make him a proper Ottawa Senators fan. So I'll keep people updated on how that's going.
Good. I look forward to hearing any updates. Did he happen to bring Chris Tanev along? We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, I should have given him and his mother a reminder to try and get him in a suitcase, but he'd be extra baggage. I don't know. We'll discuss that in the upcoming segment, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just how much baggage he could be.
So first thing I wanted to really mention was the game against the Predators, I should say. Down 3-0 headed into the second. Joonas Korpisalo comes in net, and not too many people were very confident about that. But Ottawa comes back, completes the comeback, 4-3 in overtime. Korpisalo looked fantastic, making I believe it was 18 saves. It was a tough night for Sogaard. First of all, is there any takeaways from the game you want to talk about? And second of all, who do you run with going forward? Because neither of them instill much confidence. But we'll start with you, Dayton. Anything jump out at you from the game?
It's nice to see a comeback happen in favor of the Senators.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened all that often this season, but now it's a slow start and it becomes a victory. That's happened a few times now, if I remember correctly. So that's a nice change to see. I think that's my big takeaway from the game is bad start, excellent finish, and that's kind of what you need.
Yeah. Paul, is there anything you took away from the game?
Well, I think you can blame the bad start on Sogaard. I'll put that at his feet. Full credit to the Senators for the second period coming back with 3 goals the way they did. They've got a lot of fight now. Maybe some of the lessons Martin is trying to instill are starting to take hold. They've gone, if I've got this right, the last 4 games, 3 of them they've gone to overtime. So
Yeah.
that's something we haven't seen. And
Yeah.
still some concerns I think they should have on the power play. I think they had 3, 4 penalties and went 0 on those penalties. So Korpisalo, well, you asked me who would I go with, Sogaard or Korpisalo, and I'm saying Korpisalo, basically because I would be concerned about failure on Sogaard's part in the NHL and what that might do to his development. So
Yeah.
go with Korpisalo.
Yeah, I agree. And Korpisalo over his past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 starts, he's shown that he can be a fantastic goaltender. And that's what's almost frustrating is that Ottawa has seen this with, and I'll use Matt Murray as the example. You see fantastic stretches of hockey out of him, but then everything falls apart. So hopefully Joonas Korpisalo can string together some good starts and really prove that he is somebody that is worth the $4 million price tag that is attached to him. So, Dayton, who are you
Well,
going to run with moving forward?
I agree with you guys. I think you run with Korpisalo. Um, you want a kid like Sogaard who has great potential to get that confidence and giving him the starts, like giving him some meaningful starts in the NHL, I think is important. He needs those minutes, those experiences, and some of them are going to suck, but taking away the positives is going to help his development. I don't think you should leave him out there to dry every single time because then you have a goalie who is broken, essentially, right?
Yep.
And I think that's happened a lot with Senators goalies, and they don't find their game until they leave the city.
but
So let's try to prevent that. And you're paying Korpisalo $4 million. He can be good. So
Yeah.
I think you're at the point of the season where you have to run with him.
Yeah.
Maybe every 4 or 5 games give Sogaard a start. Maybe it's against a strong team. Maybe it's against a weak team. But yeah, Korpisalo has to be your guy.
Yeah, just closing on Korpisalo. He, in my eyes, did nothing to redeem himself last night. Because I think back to what happened to him against the Rangers a couple of nights before. So he is, for me, his middle name is inconsistency. And they've got a real problem in Ottawa. Well, to state the obvious, Korpisalo, I was looking at his stats. He's, to this point, is 10-16-2 record, featuring a goals against average of 3.52, and that makes him 78th in the league, and a .886 save percentage, which pegs him at 35th. So yeah, this team's got some really bad goaltending, and what he did last night does nothing to change that in my eyes.
Hearing you say 78th in the league, it's crazy. Like, you see it on Money Puck or wherever you go that Korpisalo is 78th in the league in whatever stat you want to go by. So each team has 2 goalies. So that's 64 goalies. So that's at least another 16 third stringers that have been better than Korpisalo this year. That's wild to me.
I hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
Yeah. So that's just one thing that popped into my mind when you said that. One thing that I took away from the game is that made up back-to-back embellishment calls for the Ottawa Senators 2 games in a row. I don't think that it was embellishment on Ridly Greig at all. He got speared between the legs in the place nobody wants to get speared. Speared, hooked, slashed, whatever you want to call it. He got a stick in a not so great place and he fell down. Listen to the Sportsnet. I mean, Gary Galley was adamant that it was an embellishment and he shouldn't go down. I don't understand that at all. Even if you're wearing a cup, everything is just so moving so fast and whatnot. That's like, it hurts no matter what. And I don't know if either of you have ever gotten hit in the cup, but even like the impact of the cup hitting your groin hurts. Like, that just, it's not pleasant. Ridly Greig goes down, gets the embellishment. The game before, Matthew Joseph gets interfered with and almost slew-footed a little bit. I'd have to watch it again to be sure. And he goes down. I don't hate the embellishment call. I mean, I'm sure that part of him was like, I'm going to go down a little bit easy, but even then, I don't think that was an embellishment call. What do you guys think of whether it's going to be the call themselves, or what do you think of the whole, I don't know, referee perspective around Ottawa right now? And that's 2 games in a row with an embellishment call. And I believe that's the 4th and 5th embellishment call this year on Ottawa, maybe 3rd and 4th. I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
Well, Ridley hasn't. I'm not going to give him an Academy Award here. I thought he was faking it to some degree. I don't know how he ended up with his stick, but it's be that as it may, you can debate it. Same with Joseph. It's hard to tell. It's a call on the ice. I came across an interesting stat though, because embellishments always, people think it's being called too often. Guys don't deserve the embellishment call, but there was a study done from 2010 to 21 where they looked at all the penalties called in the league. And just in case you're interested, there were 105,639 penalties called from 2010 to 21.
Wow.
And only 0.32% of those penalties were diving calls. All of that to say, I don't think the league has a problem with either players diving or excessive diving calls on the part of the refs. For me, I think they should come down hard on the diving. One reason for me, at least, soccer is unwatchable is because of all the diving. It's terrible. So you've got to take a stick and beat that out of the league as far as I'm concerned. So no, all that to say, I'm not too concerned about the embellishment calls. Although I did not know, Jacob, that Ottawa's had 5 this season.
I don't know that. That's just based off memory. I think that was either their 3rd and 4th or 4th and 5th. I know that Matthew Joseph has at least one other one. So he has 2 embellishment calls on the season. And then Ridly Greig has one. I
So
believe
that's
Tim Stutzel had one earlier in the year too. I'm not sure.
yeah. So that seems way out of line with the 0.32%
Right.
guideline that I quoted. Maybe there is a league-wide conspiracy against the Ottawa Senators. I don't know. Kind of a la the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, they
Well,
used to have a
it's got to be spearheaded by Brendan Gallagher, who's sitting out for 5 games. So, Dayton, what do you make of the whole embellishment situation in Ottawa?
I don't take it too seriously because the reffing this year has been, without getting too dramatic, abysmal.
Yeah.
It's completely inconsistent. It's different from game to game. It's different from player to player. It's like there's no sense in any of it. The suspensions, the reffing, the calls. So like, oh, Ottawa got 2. Yeah, that sounds about right. Like,
Yeah.
it makes about as much sense as any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing that I don't understand with embellishment calls is how you can call embellishment and the penalty. Was it a penalty or was he diving? I like
oh,
with
yeah,
a
okay.
with a trip and call, did he trip him or did he just jump and fall? It's if he tripped him, it's a penalty, regardless of how the other person reacted. If it's a trip, it's a trip. If it's a dive, it's a dive. I don't understand. There are some cases that, especially with a hook, you can definitely call both. But like a trip, it's either you tripped him or you didn't. I don't see much of a gray area there, honestly. And so that's my biggest issue with embellishment calls is that there's always 2 calls made at the same time, and it's either did he do it or was it an embellishment?
So not to turn this discussion into a debate among legal beagles, but I actually went and read the embellishment rule. My understanding is that the issue is, did you do something to try to make it look worse than it really was? So, okay, I'll grant you if I'm the ref that you got tripped, but did you do a somersault and roll around the ice for 5 minutes and call them the medics to get you off the ice? Then that's the infraction. But what do I know?
Yeah,
That's my
and I get that. I understand that you don't want diving in the game. I don't want it in the game either. I want them to call it every time. But if it's a trip, it's a trip. Like that's just I don't think it should matter how you react to it. I think that if you get tripped, especially with high sticking, if it high sticks you and it hits you, if it barely hits you in the nose and you whip your head back, it shouldn't matter that you whipped your head back. You are going to be embarrassed when the highlight comes out. That's embarrassing on the player, but it was still a high stick. And I don't think that the reaction should have anything to do with the actual penalty itself. That's just my thoughts. I could be way out of line here and you guys might completely disagree. That's just where I sit with it.
Well, back in the day, I mean, refs, if you embellished it, they just wouldn't make the call. I remember Sidney Crosby,
Yeah.
if you skated within 3 feet of him, he'd be tossing his head back. And
Yeah.
I think even when he got a shot in the head, there were times the refs just didn't call it. So
Yeah.
that'd be a downside. And Sid figured that out eventually.
Yeah, I did. Dayton, anything you wanted to add on this?
No, you guys pretty much covered it. I'm good.
All right. So back to who was it, your grandson or son-in-law, Paul, from Calgary?
Yeah, my grandson Leo. It's a good hockey name there. Yeah.
So he didn't bring Chris Tanev with him, but do you think Chris Tanev should get his own plane ticket? Do you think that Steve Staios should make a splash, acquire Chris Tanev, hopefully with an extension? If he's going to pay big for him, it's got to come with an extension. There's talk about it probably not happening this year. It shouldn't happen this year, but it could happen in the offseason at free agency. Um, First of all, we'll start with you on this one, Dayton. Do you think that either he should be acquired through trade or free agency, and when do you think it should happen?
I think it should be happening relatively soon, and I think it should happen. I guess I should have said that first. Got it all flipped. Yes, I think Tanev it is a great target. I don't want the Senators to pay an arm and a leg for him. He's not worth an arm and a leg. He's 34. He needs an extension. He's at 4.5 right now. Yeah, I don't think he's making a lot more than that for an extension, but probably a little. He's a reliable shutdown defender who has a right-handed shot. That's exactly what the Senators need to basically solidify their defense core.
Yep.
So I don't know. If Shabbat or Chikrin is involved in a trade for Tanev, I'm not pleased. If it's for Uyghur, okay, that's more fair. But I think a trade deadline acquisition would be fine. Get him used to the team, get him used to playing with those young guys, being more of a mentor. Maybe something like a Brandstrom plus a pick and a prospect kind of deal that gets rid of one of the left-handed guys. And you can do some shuffling around to get some better combinations. I think could work out for both sides, especially if it's a decent pick. Senators have 2 first-round picks. A first-round pick for Tanev, like a late first one. I don't hate that. I don't love it, but at the trade deadline, you're going to have to pay, and people are going to want Tanev for the playoffs. So even though the Senators aren't headed towards the playoffs, I think he's important to bring in.
In my head, a deal for Tanev would look like Brandstrom. You'd have to have Kubalik in there just for the money. Brandstrom, Kubalik, the Detroit. Well, it's going to be the Boston first-round pick, and you'd have to throw something else in there. Would you throw Tyler Boucher in? Would you throw another third-round pick in? You'd have to add something else there, I think. But would the framework of Brandstrom, Kubalik, Boucher, and Boston's first-round pick? I don't hate that for Chris Tanev if he's coming with a 3-year, $5 million extension.
What if you throw in someone like Järventie?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Okay. That's a name that I thought the Senators could part with. I don't mind parting with Boucher either, but if you're trying to build a team around Brady Tkachuk, I don't know. Boucher is still kind of a guy that would work with that. Shouldn't have been 10th overall, but it's not a bad mix.
Right. He will never live up to the 10th overall hype.
Never.
But he's still looks like he could be a valuable asset in the NHL, 3rd or 4th line. Same kind of. I don't want to compare him to like Pat Maroon or Ryan Reeves, but that kind of presence on a team, just bottom of the lineup, energy guys that he would probably be able to score a little bit more than those guys, but yeah. Whether it's going to be Järventie or Boucher, or if they like Sokolov or Lassie Thompson, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take, but there's a lot that I'd be willing to part with for Tanev.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you want to add on Tanev?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you guys have said. He would be a real beast on the blue line. Any team would be glad to have him. He's in Staios's terms, he's a real experienced pro, just a guy that he's looking for.
Yep.
The only thing I question is whether there's the basis for a deal. Yes, it would have to come with an extension, but then would Tanev want to come to Ottawa? I suspect that he'd want to go to a team that's a playoff contender, and who knows when that's going to be in the case of Ottawa. Although he might be drinking the same Kool-Aid that Claude Giroux did, right, a few years ago. We're on the verge. Come on, Claude. And, that hasn't worked out so well for Claude. The other thing I wonder is, with Calgary, I don't think they've given up on a playoff shot this year. So, unloading Tanev, they'd have to think long and hard about that one. Unless they're entering into a rebuild, and in which case, I guess Ottawa could talk about picks and prospects and maybe a roster player. But boy, oh boy, that's a steep price for a guy who's past his prime. 34.
Right. I think part of it is for the same reason I would have given up a big package for Claude Giroux. It's not even just because like Giroux is past his prime for sure. He's playing fantastic, and I don't think anybody expected him to play at this level. But that veteran presence that knows what it takes to get to the playoffs, that knows how to play good hockey, and just what Steve Staios keeps saying, the pros. Ottawa needs some of those guys, and sometimes that's going to cost a premium, even if it's not as much as um, the player's really worth on their own. Like, I, I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what the asking price is. They could be looking for a second round pick and a B tier prospect. Like, it could be a second in your venti to get it done. Obviously, there would be some cap gymnastics that would have to happen, but I don't know what the asking price is. But I think that the Senators should be willing to pay a lot of assets for Chris Tanev.
If I got this wrong, I heard today that Yarventi was out for the rest of the season with an injury.
I could have missed that. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have to check it again, but that's what I think I heard. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, we are thinking a little bit about trades. Ottawa might have cleared up a roster spot. So today they waived Rourke Chartier, which was a huge surprise to everybody. Now he's not making or breaking this roster from contending for the playoffs or not. He's the fourth line center on what are they, the fifth worst team in the NHL. He's nothing fantastic, but he has been one of the steadiest players in the entire roster. He's done exactly what's expected of him. He doesn't have these egregious mistakes like almost every other player has been making on this team. He gives great effort. He's been a great fourth liner, and I think that he is the best option for the fourth line center spot, unless you want to put Ridley Gregg in there. But I don't really understand it unless there's a move coming. I don't know. There's got to be a part two to this, right? And I saw somebody say that it's the All-Star break. They're just saving a couple dollars. You're not waiving a guy to do that. You're sending guys that are on that are waiver exempt to do that. You're sending I can't even think of anybody. Does Ottawa have anybody that's waiver exempt? I don't know.
Yeah, I just can't.
Oh, Ridley Gregg.
Greg.
Yeah. That would be it, I think.
Sanderson is still technically.
Yeah, you're not doing that though. Yeah, like I don't understand it. He's a much better option than Mark Kastelik or Parker Kelly. Parker Kelly's been good under Jacques Martin, but I would rather have Rourke Chartier on my fourth line right now than either of those two. I don't know. Do either of you make anything out of it? And again, it's just he's probably going to clear. Everybody's overthinking everything, but what do you make of it, Paul?
I don't know. Honestly, I just saw it before I came on the show here that he'd been put on waivers, so I didn't really give it a chance. But you raise an interesting point, though, Jacob. There's got to be some method to the madness with a guy like Staios. So stay tuned. It'll be an interesting month of February leading up to the trade deadline. That's for sure.
Yep. Dayton, any significant things pop into your mind when you see Rourke Chartier getting waived?
I mean, it's unfortunate, right? He's a likable guy. At least I like him. I was made fun of for liking him on our comments. I noticed.
Yeah.
I read a few of those. But he has been a very reliable player for that fourth line. More so than Kastelik this year, who's been pretty rough. Like a lot. He's been a significant downgrade from what he was. Are they just trying to make room for another call-up? Because they don't have room really for a trade.
No.
At least money-wise.
It would clear a roster spot, but not the money.
Yeah, he's
so I don't see it as a trade. I just see it as trying to shake up some of the bottom six. Maybe trying to get Kastelik back with something that worked before. Maybe bringing back McEwen, who also hasn't been good, but maybe some, or is he back now? I can't.
Yes, McEwen is back.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I know he was down and I got confused. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But maybe it's looking to call up one of the young guys Yeah, I don't know. To me, it doesn't say too much. I think they want to keep him, but I also think that they're not re-signing him.
Yeah,
So
he's this year's version of Jake Lucchini or who else was it last year that was just an AHL guy that there was somebody else, and I apologize for forgetting that name. But like Jake Lucchini last year, he was good while he was in Ottawa, but like you're not gonna miss him when he moves on, and he's actually played pretty well for Minnesota at times this year. Um, but yeah, I who knows what the future holds for Rourke Chartier. All right, we're gonna move into a little bit of a survey style thing. You don't need to give me much of an answer. You can give me as long as of an answer as you want, or just tell me what your answer is. So, the best part of this team so far this year, has it been the top six, the depth, the top four defense, goaltending, which it hasn't. I know that's not the right answer. Team offense or team defense? Paul, what has been the best part of this team for you?
There hasn't been a lot to like, I have to tell you, I have to be honest. But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to go with the depth. And the reason I'm saying that is, perhaps now with Pinto back, the bottom six has got some punch. It's got some energy. They're fun to watch with Pinto, Kelly, Greg, Tarasenko. I'd like to be able to say the top six, but if you look at the stats, they've been underperforming relative to last year.
Yeah.
Stützle is not on track to do what he did last year, and nor is to Chuck. So yeah, I'll go with depth.
All
That's
right,
the
that's
thing.
fair enough. And you know what? We talk about the depth and we don't like you look at the projected lineup for each game. Right now, Vladimir Tarasenko and Matthew Joseph are part of the depth as well that we're talking about because they're bottom six guys. And when we say depth, that's pretty much what we mean is the bottom six, and how they're doing and everybody that rotates in and out. Dayton, best part of the team for you.
think I'm gonna go top six.
Okay.
I think everyone has underperformed this year. Um, like maybe a few guys stick out, but if you're looking at the team at the whole, then yeah, it's disappointing. But you still have guys like Stützle, who is an 80, 90 point guy. I hope he hits 100. But he's, a little bit lower than he was, but is still doing good.
Yep.
Giroux looks good. Tarasenko looks good. Kachuk is doing Kachuk things.
Yep.
And even like Norris, who has been somewhat disappointing, still has 12 goals.
Yeah.
So while it's a step back from last year, I still think it's one of the bright spots of the team.
That's fair. I like that assessment. There's a lot to work on for that group, but you are right. There are a lot of bright spots as well. Um, I think I'm going to agree with Paul here and just go with the depth and just all these guys that are doing exactly what's expected of them. Like at least if you split the season from DJ to Jacques Martin, Parker Kelly's been great as of late. Rourke Chartier, who we just talked about, he's been good as a fourth line center. Vlad Tarasenko's doing good. Matthew Joseph is doing fantastic for the expectations put on him. The depth of this team is exceeding expectations in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the depth being the best part of this team. What has been the worst part? I think there's only two real options here, and that's goaltending or team defense. It could be team offense or the top four, but I think we're pretty much all gonna agree that it's one of goaltending or team defense. Which side are you on, Dayton?
I'm going to go defense.
Okay.
For the reason that I don't think it's all the goaltending's fault. I think the goaltending has been put into a bad position and they haven't responded well. So they're not blameless, but I think they keep getting raw deals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are Senators goalies still doing well outside of the city of Ottawa?
Yeah.
They have good goalies. They're just not getting the support they need. And I think that comes back to defense. And like Chikrin has 50 giveaways. I know I
Yeah.
mentioned something like that last time. And like 44 of his giveaways are in the defensive zone. That's 14 more than the second place, which is Jake Sanderson,
Wow.
who has been also, pretty good this year, but still 40. Yeah. He has 30 giveaways in the defensive zone. How do
Yeah.
you get a good goaltending tandem when you are giving away that many shots in the defensive zone, or chances at least? So that's that's what sticks out to me for that.
Yeah. Paul, where's it at for you? Goaltending or team defense?
You know what? I was gonna slag the goaltending until I heard Dayton make that powerful case for it being the defense. I'm gonna side with him here. I had the defense actually. Somebody asked me what my big surprises were, and that was one of them, how bad the defense was. And
Yeah.
so I'll go with defense and lay off the goaltenders.
Well, I got to keep it interesting and talk about the goaltenders then. I would have said team defense, but I mean it's a coin toss. The goaltending is just not good enough. Doesn't matter who's been in net for Ottawa. Yes, the team defense needs to be better in front of them, but they need to get a save here and there. Like that's so Ottawa is 5-2-2 in their last 9, which is really good. That's great. The 2 regulation losses, they let in 7 goals in each of them, against Colorado and against the New York Rangers. So that's 14 goals against in their 2 regulation losses. That is terrible. And you look at Korpisalo, 4 goals on 4 shots against the Rangers in the second period. You look at just all the games that Ottawa should have won this year. If Korpisalo or Forsberg could have made one easy save. And I don't know. There was one game, I don't remember who it was against. Ottawa was down 4-3, and they were finally getting momentum. They were down 4-2, just scored the 3rd goal, and they finally had momentum. There was like 50 seconds left, and there was a very, very light toss towards the net, and Korpisalo let it in. Just a instant vibe killer, and there's nothing redeemable about the goaltending. Like I've been preaching that Korpisalo has been good for the last 8 games or so, but you look at the whole season, and it's just not. Goaltending has not been good in Ottawa, and it's a huge problem.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, you kind of already answered this, but biggest surprise so far could be one player, could be something about the team, could be that Dorion's fired, could be that DJ's fired. I don't think that was really much of a surprise. Paul, what's your biggest surprise of the season so far?
Biggest one, I guess it would have to be, I've got 3 of them, but the biggest one would be just how bad the defense has been, with the addition of Chikrin and fewer minutes. The conventional wisdom that was Shabbat was going to come into his own, with fewer minutes that he had to play, and that just didn't happen. So yeah, that for me, that was the big one.
That's fair. All right, and how about you, Dayton? What has been the biggest surprise for you on this team? Again, whether it's anybody getting fired, any changes that were made, people thriving, people failing. What's your number one thing?
I don't think any of the firings are a surprise, but I think how they went down was a surprise. So I'm thinking mainly about Dorion, who was fired after the league punished the Senators for a trade that happened 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. What?
Yeah.
Is I think everyone's collective response to that. Yeah. Did he do a pretty abysmal job in constructing this roster? Totally. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't set this team up to succeed. And we can clearly see that now, despite some of the good signings he made.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was fired in that way after that thing was incredibly surprising. So yeah, that sticks out to me this year as just a really weird moment.
Yeah, when I was writing up these notes and I was writing this, and I wrote biggest surprise so far, I was in my head, I'm like, it's got to be the Dadonov situation, right? That was, nobody really saw that coming. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Ottawa loses a first round pick. It had to be the biggest surprise. But then I was like, hold on. We missed Shane Pinto for 41 games out of absolutely nowhere. We thought it was a little contract dispute over $250K. Whether was it going to be $2 million or 2.25? Right? That's what we thought it was all about. The biggest surprise for me so far this season was Shane Pinto getting suspended for 41 games. That's where it sits with me. Um, I d- it just came out of nowhere, like the Dadonov situation, but this had a way bigger impact. I think I think losing Pinto for 41 games is worse than losing a first round pick, if I'm going to be honest. Like just think at the halfway point of the season, would you trade a first round pick for Shane Pinto?
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think he's definitely worth at least a late first round.
Yeah. Like you could argue that's pretty fair value. Halfway through the season, adding Shane Pinto and the impact that he's already made and how deep he makes this lineup, I would say that that's roughly the same value as a first round pick, in my opinion. So that has been the biggest surprise for me. Um, yeah. Um,
It's
Next
maybe a
up,
little telling how uh, how the Senators' season has gone by the surprises that we picked. They are
yes,
all negative.
they were all negative. Nobody has been thrive. I could say that it's been a surprise that Travis Hamonic has sat for what, 7 games now. That's a surprise. That's good. That's positive.
Is it though? You're cheering on somebody not being in the lineup because they're bad.
Yeah. Hey, it's a positive. It makes the team better. It's a positive.
I don't know, man. It's
uh,
uh it's just it's this team. It's
yeah.
kind of like, is there a positive performance by anybody on this year? Like, or maybe not a positive performance, but a surprising performance positively.
No.
No, like there's been guys who've performed as expected.
Yeah.
Ridley Gregg is good.
Yeah.
Claude Giroux is,
No, I would say Ridley Gregg has surprised me with how good he's done.
I
I
think
would
he's
say
done
he's the only
exactly
one.
as advertised. Like that's what you got as a late
Yeah.
first round guy. He's a heart and soul player, always was with the
Yeah.
Brandon Wheat Kings. And so he's come in and done that. And so he's
Doing
thrived
it
on a team that's given him those opportunities. I
doing
don't think
it
that's
this
all that
season would be a
surprising.
surprise. Doing it this season is a surprise for me. I would expect this maybe next season, another year of maturity in Belleville, but this season I'd say Ridley Gregg has been a surprise for me.
Okay.
Um, so next up we have the Ottawa Senators should trade blank at the trade deadline. Give me a name that they should be moving at the trade deadline. Could be you could tell me Tim Stutzel as long as you can back it up. I'll listen. Or you could tell me Dominic Kubalik because that money is just dead space on Ottawa right now. Paul, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say Tarasenko, assuming he says, no, I don't want to sign here long term. You need to have that
Okay.
conversation. He says, I'm not interested. He's gone.
Okay. Dayton.
Uh a left-handed defenseman, if I can be general like that. One of them has to go. There's too many. If
Yeah.
it's a big one, great, get a good return. If it's not, someone like Brandstrom, that's fine. That clears up a couple of bucks and a spot. Um, but the longer you wait, the more muddy you make things. So I would say one of them has to go at the deadline.
Okay. I'm gonna say Boston's first round pick. Or Detroit's. I'm Boston or Detroit's first round pick. That extra first round pick. I think the Senators need to acquire somebody just to continue to develop the winning culture, or develop a winning culture, not continue developing. They do not have a winning culture at all. They need to bring somebody in. Now, obviously, they're gonna have to move some money out, so I could throw a couple names in there as well. We already did with Eric Brandstrom, Dominic Kubalik, whatever. But using the first round pick to try and bring someone in. Yes, Ottawa needs prospects. They 100% need to keep their own first round pick unless it's an absolute blockbuster. But even then, we did that with Jacob Chikrin. We did that with Alex DeBrincat. You need to keep your first round pick. It's going to be top 12 this year at least. So Ottawa needs to hang on to that. Um, yeah, trade that late first round pick and bring somebody in that can help this team. Get that true pro that we were talking about. All right, next up, the Ottawa Senators should re-sign blank this offseason. Not a lot of options. Um, Shane Pinto is a given. Dominic Kubalik is a given that he's not being re-signed. Vladimir Tarasenko might be one of the few answers to this question. Rourke Chartier is in there. There's a couple of guys, but is there anybody that really stands out to you as somebody they should be re-signing to?
And you're talking specifically unrestricted.
Well, Shane Pinto, it's a given he's going to get a contract. If there's an RFA like Parker Kelly, there's
Yeah.
not a given that he gets qualified and extended.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. So I think then my guy would be Parker Kelly. He is what you need in the bottom six or on the fourth line. He's had a little bit of a resurgence in these last few games. He's looked like that guy that he was supposed to be, a really hard worker, just a real competitor on that bottom line. So you need to keep that, especially if you can keep him for cheap. Tarasenko, I think there's a good argument for keeping him, as long as the price is right, because of course the Senators have messed with all of that, and they should keep him, but I don't think they can, but they should.
That's fair. That makes sense in my head. Paul, what do you got?
Yeah, you guys nailed the guys that you need to re-sign. I'm Sogaard. He's an RFA at the end of this season.
Yes.
So I don't know what to do with him. But one thing I'm going to circle back on, maybe to my barrel, is who you trade at the deadline. Brandstrom, I agree with Jacob. He's evidently surplus. He's they had him up on the left wing, for God's sake. So that speaks volumes. And then one of Shabbat or Chikrin. And I know that's controversial. I'd choose Shabbat. And the reason I say that is if Tyler Clevin comes up, then you've really got a log jam there. And one of those guys has to go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to confess, I really hate Josh Norris. I really do. He's been bloody awful. If you look at his last 20 games, he is not worth $7.95 million that they're on the hook to pay him for the next 5 years. He's a problem. And if you could work some deal with him, I'd look at it. I know he was a golden boy at one time. He's no longer that.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Josh Norris's two-way game, but for the price he is at, he needs to be scoring more. That's kind of where I sit with it. I'm just doing a quick Google search here. I look at somebody like Philip Deneau. So Philip Deneau makes $5.5 million and has 3 years after this. And this season, he has 29 points in 47 games. Josh Norris makes $3 million more than him, $2.5 million more than him, and has 24 points in 10 less games. So he's scoring at a pretty similar rate. Philip Deneau is a much better defensive center and makes $2.5-3 million less. So I can't really see Josh Norris really living up to the value of his contract, and Ottawa needs a guy more like Philip Deneau. Or I even look at a guy in Winnipeg like Alex Iafallo. I'm a huge fan of his, and he could be out of Winnipeg pretty soon. He could be a good trade chip for them to kind of upgrade for them. I don't know, but Ottawa needs somebody that's more just you do your job as defense, and then the offense that you add on top is a bonus. And that's not what Josh Norris was signed to be. He makes too much money to be that. I don't know.
He's supposed to be a 30-goal, 60-point guy.
Yeah.
And he's falling significantly short of that this year.
Yeah.
I can justify paying $7 million for a 30-goal, 60-point guy. I don't love it, but I can justify it. You can't do it for a 20-goal guy. $8 million for a 20-goal guy.
No.
Yeah, you got to be better than that.
I agree. All right, and last one here that I got is what do the Senators need more? A top 5 pick or a serious run at the playoffs? So as they sit right now, if they go 26-9, I believe, in their remaining games, I believe that they will be right there at the playoffs, maybe a point or two out. But if they go 26-9, that's a really good playoff push. What do they need more? A top 5 pick or a playoff push like that? We'll start with you, Paul.
The top 5 pick. I think a playoff push would turn out to be a meaningless distraction These guys are a bad hockey team. They're a 434 hockey club. I don't know how they're going to win. What'd you say? 20-9 or
26 and
something?
9.
I mean, they're 26-9. They're not going to do that. They don't have it that in them, not even close. There's, to put it in perspective, there's 17 points out of the last wild card spot, and that's held by the Detroit Red Wings. So if it were me, I'd be paying attention to top 5 picks opportunities and building my team, making the trades that you need to make, assessing your talent, and all eyes focused on next year.
All right, Dayton, what do you think? What's best for the future of the Ottawa Senators?
Ooh, heavy question.
Yeah.
I say heavy because I think both have really good arguments. Here's where I'm though. I think a playoff push is more important.
Yeah.
I think it sets the team up for immediate success. And yes, they're not gonna go 26-9 in the last chunk of the season. That's at least 4 wins for every loss, if I did my math right. You need a little bit more too, probably about 5 wins for every loss. That's better than they're already doing right now, which is the best they've done all season.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen unless you somehow appease the hockey gods. Yeah. I don't know how you do that though, because Ottawa sure doesn't. But I think you start building that winning culture that you understand how to compete and make it feel like it means something. It's not one of those seasons where you're already eliminated from the playoffs, and like they kind of are, but they're still technically not.
Yeah.
So these are important, especially for all these young kids. A top 5 pick would be awesome. There's some great guys at the top end of the draft. Yeah. You're looking at like a top right-handed defenseman in why did I forget his name? Is that Levshunov? Artem Levshunov?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he's great. There's a couple of Russians that are really interesting. You get down a little further, Carter Yakimchuk is an interesting right-handed defender. Those guys aren't ready for 5 years.
Yeah.
The top best guys aren't making an impact on this team for 5 years. Even you get a top guy like Sam Dickinson, even though he's a left-handed shot, which I think would be a terrible decision from the Senators.
Yeah.
He's not ready for at least 4 years. That's basically getting close to the end of a lot of those big contracts you signed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, your playoff window that you thought you had is gone. And so a top 5 pick, while it would be great, man, adding someone like 6'4" Caden Lindstrom, so good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help you now, and it probably won't help you later. That might just end up being the new guy to build around because everyone else will be gone.
Yeah. I'm with you there. A top 5 pick would be fantastic, and we would all be very happy to see that. But right now, a playoff push, if they can come within 5 points of a playoff spot and keep developing any kind of culture that knows how to win, that's what Ottawa needs right now, right? You can make signings, you can make trades, you can add those guys. It might not be easy, but you can do it. You can't develop a winning culture if you don't win. You can get top 5 picked talent without getting a top 5 pick. That's where I sit. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap things up for today. We will leave everything there. Let us know your thoughts and comments down in the comment box. And thank you all for watching and hope you enjoyed.